chat with Nigel, and he posted something a couple of weeks ago or something about that in the lovely Canva Crew Facebook group, where he'd shared something he'd been working on and wanted a bit of help with some design feedback and any improvements. And at the time it was August and I was in the midst of going away on holiday and bits and bobs, so I couldn't sort of sit down and give Nigel my view on like, oh, do this and do that, which I like to do when I can. So instead I offered this sort of fast fix. It means that Nigel gets some free design input from me, and you guys watching hopefully will pick up a few tips both in design and Canva. So before we get cracking into behind the scenes of Nigel's Canva, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, Nigel, and about your business?
Yes, hi. Thank you, Marie-Louise. I run Lifetools. It's both a digital marketing agency and we have a training academy for personal development products to help people with a variety of things like creative solutions, memory, self-improvement, goal setting, etc. Within the digital agency, we decided to launch a new service called the SEO Doctor. And it's a free service that helps people get their websites analyzed. And there's 5 key points to it that cover all the base points for a very good website development. And I needed an identity for it. I didn't want anything too formal. I wanted something that was a little bit user-friendly, simple to understand. But as anything, sometimes I get lost in the detail, and I find it difficult sometimes to step back and look at the overall design. Hence, I created something in Canva, posted it in the group because I wasn't quite happy with it, and it's led to where we are today. So I'm really excited and looking forward to seeing what suggestions come forward.
Yeah, and you're not alone with that. I mean, even myself, I mean, I'm a trained designer. I've been doing this for over 16 years, but there are sometimes certain projects or designs where you're sort of like, you get it to a point and it'll do, it's okay, but it's not quite there. It's maybe too much going on, or it's just not quite hitting the nail on the head. So it happens to us all, but particularly if you're sort of trying to figure stuff out, and also when you're really close to it, when you're in the midst of the project, it can be a bit kind of overwhelming, I guess. And there's so many factors of making something good. You've got the text that you put on it, the images, graphics and stuff like that. So I'm pleased I can help you in this way. So I'm going to share my screen, and I've already joined as a team member. We've got the teams working this time. I've had a go at it before and it's kind of been a bit funny and not kind of worked so well. So thankfully we seem to be operating okay today. So if you've got any questions, and both you, Nigel, or those watching this live stream or on replay, just put something in the chat. In the midst of all of this, I can't see your comments and I just want to crack on really. But if you've got any questions or things that you want to comment on, feel free to post a comment below, and I'll come and check back later and see if I can answer that way, or maybe you'll feature in something like this in the future. I'll certainly be doing more of these in the future again. Okay, so we've got this was what you posted in the group, didn't you, Nigel? And you said that this goes on your website. It's a a Facebook page banner and stuff like that. It's doing quite a lot of stuff as well as being used as a social media post, but you felt that some of the text wasn't quite working. Yeah, brilliant. So so I can see that there's some things here that we can improve, and it's amazing how you can see that when I do these fast fixes and work with my design clients, that sometimes just even like a whole load of small changes really make such a big difference when you add it all up. So I'm going to make a duplicate of this so that we got a nice before and after, because I do like that. And it also helps you to hopefully see the difference that these changes make. Now, the biggest thing here that I feel that could be improved is I'm not a big fan of center text. So sometimes it works, and in social media posts, it can be quite helpful, but use sparingly. Center text can be helpful and does work, but generally speaking, I prefer to use text that is ranged to the left. And particularly here, you can see that there's bullets here. And rather than Canva kind of popping it next to the, you know, so that it kind of wobbles along, you've got the dot there for the bullets, and then you've got the centered text there, and it kind of doesn't really work in my opinion. So I would certainly make the text ranged over, although not all of it wants to. There we go. So immediately you can see that from a text point of view, it's kind of lining up, but you've got the issue of it sort of going over the lab coat. So if we kind of move it over a little bit. Another thing to keep in mind is sort of the kind of line ending. So when you've got like lots of paragraphs or even bullets like this, you want to think about how things, you know, that you don't have something really kind of long. You want to make it look nice from that point of view. I would also range this to the left as well, so that we can range it up here. And we can always make that a little bit sort of smaller. You could, if you wanted to, keep it with the centered. It's not the end of the world in this particular case, but I think I would prefer it kind of over. And if need be, we can always sort of move this lady over a bit, but let's see how we get on. So another key thing is that you've got the bullets in different colors. Talk me through, if you could unmute yourself a moment, Nigel, about why you've chosen these particular colors and why are they different colors for the bullets?
Well, the initial concept was each point would stand out individually to a color match. And they're also sort of the blue colors and sort of the orange are sort of highlights on the main website.
Okay.
But actually, because this is a sub-brand or a service from the main website, it can have its own unique identity and colors anyway. So I don't mind too much if they get changed to make them feature more.
Yeah. So in this particular case, I would say that what you could do is alternate between black and white for the bullets. I probably wouldn't use the blue, because ultimately, you know, if you want to think of in base terms, a good design is making sure that people can at the bare minimum read the text, that there's that contrast. And so the blue is, there's not enough contrast between the shade of blue that's the background and the blue that's on top. If the blue text was, say, a navy, and maybe the background was slightly lighter, then yes, you could. The other issue is the orange, although it would make quite a nice sort of like button or like blob or something, or some sort of shape, having the orange text on the blue, actually it's kind of buzzing a bit. There again, there's that issue of contrast and being able to read it properly. So I would go in and kind of alternate between white and black. And in fact, because you've got this text here, which is black, what I would do is make that one white, make that black, make that white, black, white. So you haven't got the thing of that each individual bullet has its own color per se, but then to be fair, you didn't with there because you had two blues, but at least you're kind of alternating it a bit more. So hopefully it kind of achieves what you had hoped it to do. And I also wonder whether it would be worth having this in a bit bolder, the open sans. Is there a open sans in a bolder? So let's make that a bit smaller. Just so that, you know, again, because it's a very thin text, and I quite like a thin text, but because it's on the dark background, it gets a bit lost. So we just sort of go up one font weight. And I would also probably put STO on the next line, but we'd just sort of cheat it there. And let's do a longer hyphen rather than the short one. Okay, and is there some effects on it? No. Okay. I thought I saw some sort of weird halo around the orange text, but I think it's the way that the orange sits on top of the blue. It kind of, it's that kind of buzzing. It's the same with, you wouldn't really want to put like red or like red text on green, a green background. You have to be really careful with the contrast, especially if they're a similar shade. And then you've got issues like color blindness and stuff like that. So being aware of that. So on here, let's zoom in a little bit and move over. So you've got a bit of a shadow here, which I don't mind, but I feel that it's not really kind of adding a lift to it, because you've got the dark text and then the dark shadow and then a relatively dark background. That kind of shadow effect's not really helping, again, the readability and making it pop. So let's go to the effects, which is up there. And so we can see there's a black shadow. So let's see what it looks like with the white. And if we zoom out, so you can see already that's given it a bit more lift, because it's contrasting. If we compare it to that, which that kind of the gray on, or you know, the semi-transparent shadow, it's kind of making that a bit fuzzy, whereas that kind of gives it that lift. And we could you know, make it even stronger, because at the moment the transparency is at 40%, so we could make it a bit stronger still. You could also change this to make it like a fuzzy kind of one, sort of more blurred, but I think in this case your kind of style suits the kind of flat one. So Nigel's just told me in the Zoom chat that he's colorblind. Ah, interesting. So what colors can you, are you particularly, because there's all sorts of different types of color blindness, what ones do you struggle with?
It's when it comes to shades of colors.
Okay.
I'm fine with the clear, definitive archetypal color, but when they start blurring, a blue blurs into a purple, a red into a green,
yeah,
brown.
Okay, interesting. Right, so I'm going to offset that a bit more so it's a bit more pronounced. You can also change the direction. I quite like the direction that it was in. And let's click on fit. Okay, so let's take a view. You know, it's always good to sort of have that sort of step back, as it were. So here we've got some text that kind of goes over the lady doctor, and there's sort of a couple of things that we could do here. So I would either make this bigger so that it's sitting more over her lab coat, or kind of making it so that no text goes in front of her. So when you're at a crossroads with any kind of design where you're like, well, I quite like it where it's going here, but I want to try this and try that. So let's do a copy of this version. So we'll do one where we make sure we'll just take that text a little bit smaller, so that it's not sitting over the top, and make this bottom text. Let's make sure that there's a, nope, I want to go the other way. I think also let's not make the, so if you typed that in capitals, so I would probably not have a URL like that in the caps, and I've just tried to make it not caps using this tool, and it looks like it's, so I'm just going to do a bit of typing that out and hopefully not spell it wrong. SCO.tor. Does it need that / at the end? You're on mute, I can't hear you.
It's not necessary.
Okay, so from a kind of design thing, you know, let's remove that. So let's go to fit. So we could make the book here a bit bolder. So So another thing that you've got going on is that you've got a number of tech fonts as well, actually, just noticed. So you've got Montserrat, Norwester, and then Open Sans. So it makes sense that the Norwester, which is, I guess it's kind of like your logo here, is a particular font. But with these two fonts here, I would pick either Open Sans or Montserrat. I wouldn't have a combination of the two because they're quite similar fonts in a way. They're both sans sort of kind of simple fonts. So do you have a particular preference over this font versus what you've used here?
The Montserrat has a slightly crisper finish and feel to it. The sans I find is more of a readable, if you're on a long copy type website, it's easier on the eye over a period of time. The Montserrat, I think, is good for bullet points because it's short, sharp, and stands out in a crisper manner.
Yeah, so in this context, then it makes sense that we bring this into being Montserrat as well. So in the context of your website, as you said, if you're wanting to use it there, then that, you know, that makes sense. But in this context, let's keep it to the two types of fonts. And semi-bold. We'll just have to adjust that. We could maybe make that even bolder. I'm cheating it with the, does that make any difference? Yes. Take it down a notch. Okay, so that kind of brings it all aligned a bit more as well, which is good. And maybe make that a bit bigger. And now that that's not capped, the URL, we can make that a bit bigger again. And you've got quite because we've used the kind of black and white text here, it might be quite nice to have a bit of white text here, because you've got quite a lot of black there. So we can bring that down. Something that you can do is make use of guides, and you need to you go into File, Show Guides, and Show Rulers. And what we can do is make sure that things are nice and kind of lined up. So it might be that if we take that as a more of the, so I want to make sure that that corner square is, that bit there is sort of looks square. And then I'm going to do I'm just doing it by eye. There are kind of other ways that you can do it, and then try and visually make that look square in the corner there. So what I'm going to do there is just bring these up. So again, it's quite a small thing, but it's going to mean that you're just making sure that you're not putting anything going past that. So we could move that down a bit, and you could sort of have that, make sure that's lined up. You can put another one of the guides there. So I think I might go back to sort of having it free website health check. Oh. Okay, I don't want it that big. Right. So I'm sort of deliberately kind of making it stepped. Let's make that like that. Okay. And then we need to make that a little bit smaller. And again, think about how your, like how your text lines up as well. So running free website health checks, so having the health checks together is useful from that kind of copy point of view. Okay, so there's some bits that I like about this. So I might actually copy this one that I've just tidied up, and then we were talking about how we could make that deliberately bigger across there. You know, if you wanted that really, really big, might be worth making that a touch smaller so that it's not too close into her. And because that text is white, you wouldn't really want that white on that. So we can remove the, you know, hide the guides so that we can see it, you know, what it looks like. So I'm also going to look at, you know, how that text, although it's sitting on top, how does it interact with that coat? You know, does it actually work? So where it hits, you know, you consider these things. But looking at having it sort of in its neat bit, I think bringing that in will give it a bit more space. I personally prefer it where it's not overlapping. I don't know what your thoughts are, Nigel. I think that kind of makes it a bit busy.
Yes, and the white shadow or the contrast gets then lost, so the text almost changes as it goes across, and just it just catches you in not the correct way.
Yeah. So yeah, so what I like to do is my favorite one I put at the top. So you can see when you click on the grid view, we've got a number going on. So we've got the original, which is page 4, and then we sort of played around with it, realized that the text, you know, needed changing, had a go at doing that and kind of outlining. So if we get rid of, or if we move the kind of before and after, so we'll make that, we'll call that before, and that's the after. And if I size it down a bit more so we can kind of hopefully see both of them. I can't zoom out any more than that. Let's hide the rulers. So we can just about see them side by side. So we can see what you had before at the bottom, where, you know, there were some nice bits about it. I like the illustration you've used. I like the you know, the font you use for SEO Doctor. There's some things working for it. It's not like terrible. It does the job. But hopefully you can see that by making the URL upper, you know, like lowercase, and this means that it's more readable as a URL, and you would put that link elsewhere, you know, so that it's a clickable link in the actual text. And then you've got a little bit more space here. We've made sure that it's quite a tight margin, but we've made sure that it's a bit more even. It's not far off on the bottom one. And yeah, just we've changed the text so it kind of alternates between the white and the black, which has a bit more you know, contrast with that background. So is there anything else that you feel could be improved in your opinion?
No, I did have a play around when I was doing the banners with animating them, but I think that's just using animation for the sake of it. I don't think it adds anything to it. Yeah.
But also with I guess sort of on your website, having animation in the banner kind of you can do, but certainly on the you know, on a Facebook page and stuff, you can't use that these days. They keep changing what you can and can't do on Facebook. I did a whole training video on like how to make a video Facebook header for your page, and then they changed it all. I was like, oh, that doesn't work anymore. Right, so you also asked me about help with some.
Good.
Brilliant, thank you. Well, I'm glad I could help. I'll download the before and after this session. So you also had this series of stills that you said of things, these images that you would use. Is it you know, for your website, or just you want to create a video which has these slides, and you're having an issue with changing the transitions on all of them. So we can see, so this is actually quite timely because the video, they've changed how you can edit videos on Canva, and I was meaning, it's on my to-do list to go through it, so we'll kind of cover it today. So you can see here there's a they've now added this transition feature. So it used to be that you could do like how things animate, but it wasn't necessarily a transition between the slides. So you've got something here, so where you've got this sort of, it's almost like an infinity symbol, but kind of more triangular. Whereas here, there's a plus symbol, which tells me that there's no transition between those two. And if we scroll along, there's a few there. So I think you were saying about how can we kind of make the transition like the same between all of them. So let's have a look. So you've got a dissolve. So so I just clicked on that and allowed me to change the thing. So you've got dissolve on there. You can also change the duration here. And fun fact, we're learning together because I haven't had a chance to play with it. Now at the bottom here, you've got an apply between all pages. So that's how you can change it so that it puts it on all of them. So you can have different transitions between each page if you want to. So you've got the choice between dissolve, and that kind of gives you a bit of a preview, or a slide. I would say, oh, and there's a circle wipe or line wipe, or none if you wanted none. Out of all of them, I'd say the dissolve is probably the nicest one. So just click apply between all pages, and if we now look at that, we can see that the that kind of infinity sign thing, which symbolizes the transition, is now on all of them. So what we've done here is apply to it. So if you want to change that, what we could do, say if you wanted it to be none, you could click or apply to all pages, and now you can see that plus that thing, it would just flash between, there'd be no kind of transition between. So I'll click dissolve again, and the default is 0.5 seconds, and we'll click apply to all. You can also view, so you've got this new view thing where it's sort of, it's trying to make it look a bit like some of these movie and video editors. I use iMovie sometimes with sort of a bit more editing features, and there are other stuff out there. And so these sort of transitions and the way you look at it seems to be quite similar. But you can also click the grid view if you want to look at it, you know, a kind of that helicopter view of all the slides, and it can be a bit easier in a way to sort of move them around if you want to reorder them. So that's a bit of a fun fact there. Right. So if I click back on that one, and I think you can, so you can zoom into the page as well, and you can click fit. Can you fit? What's going on there? Oh, that's okay. So that's for how big you see the thumbnails, and then if I click on that, that's the page. Ooh, didn't know that. I'm like, I'm figuring it out. So you also said about the volume of the music. So you've got some music applied to it. So this purple line from when I had a cursory play earlier should be the sound. So if I click on that, haha. So that, once you click on that, you can see all the like sound wave doodahs. Very technical term there. Yes. So let's click on the three dots there. So whenever you're like, I don't know what to do, how to edit it, when you've got these three dots, you know, you've got it on the more and all sorts of places. If you click on it, it just gives you some more editing features. So if we click adjust, this allows you to move it along a little bit. So if you wanted it to finish, to start slightly louder, so you come into the music or the song slightly into it, and then it will trail off, to quiet, or keep it the other way where we just move it along. And at the top, whilst we clicked on here, can you see next to the kind of trash can, you've got the volume button. So if we click on that, that switches it off. And then if I click on it and in a certain way, I don't know why one put it on mute and the other brings that up, but we can now twiddle it down. And I do find that the music does come in quite loud. So you would sort of have a little play with that and see what works. And when you play it, so I've got headphones in, so you guys are not going to hear it. So you've got a kind of tumble thing going on as well, which is not keen on personally. Oh, you've got some different transitions. Okay, so there's some piano music in the background, and by putting it down to 30, that's, to me, sounds like a reasonable amount. So you can always adjust that, like I said, by when you've clicked on there. You could also delete it. And if you go to more the elements, audio. So in elements, you've got the audio, see, or if you wanted to change something, you could put a different one there, but I don't want to start messing around with that. And I think you can also layer music as well, but I'm not sure why you'd want multiple music tracks. So going back to here, let's click off. So are we on page 1? So can you see here, it says tumble here. So that's when we did the play or the preview, that's the tumble thing. So you've got the transition between the slides, or at least you should. And then you've got this feature, and then we had some different ones. So let's go to, so if we click on here where it says tumble, and what we can do in this, much in the same way, you can change like how the element, in this case it's just one flat image, comes into the page. So do you want anything like that, or would you rather that there was a bit more time between the transitions, so that it was just the image was there and then it faded between two? Because at the moment you've got kind of two things going on.
Yeah, I prefer the fade. I thought the universal change would have dealt with the different ones I had in there.
So there's two things going on here, you see, because you've got page animations and you've got transitions. So the page animation is animating things that are on the page, right. And then the transitions is how it fades or changes from one page to another. So you've got two things going on there separate. So if you just literally want the image to appear or just be there, and then it fades to the next one, then we need to click none. And like we did with the other one, we can apply to all pages so that it doesn't do that. And then if we click on the animation, maybe do try a 1 second one, and then will it not let me do to all of them? Interesting. It's not letting me
that might be because you'd already selected dissolve, so it's there by default. So
yeah,
change it. So if you selected say slide, it might then come up with apply to all.
Okay, I think okay, so because I've done it before, let's click on the other one. So some of them are 0.5, which is what was there before, but it won't let me. Let's click apply to all pages so we can see if we can get the 1 second thing on all of them, and then we'll click dissolve, apply to all. Now has it changed that? Yes. Okay, so it's a bit of a workaround. It was not letting me change the duration and then apply it all. And so we had a weird thing if they were on the default 0.5. So if we go back to the beginning and do a little preview. So the fade is at 1 second, and then it sits on each slide for each page for 6 seconds. Although some of them are quicker, so you need to test it out and check. And also sometimes with that preview thing, what I've found is that sometimes it kind of, because of like the internet and stuff like that, it doesn't preview exactly right. So it's also worth previewing it in there, but then downloading it and just double checking that everything flows properly. So let's go back to the animating of the page. So we've got none. The default is not, so on that page, okay, so on this page there's 6 seconds, and then there's 5 seconds, which I can see. Oh, I can hover over these. Ooh. So when you hover over them, some of these are 5 seconds, but that first one was 6 seconds. So let's make that first one 5 seconds as well. And yeah, so that means that it will go the same rate. And you've got the transitions. So there we go. Hopefully that has helped you and anyone watching. Figured it out in the end. It is worth having a little play with the video. It's because they've tried to add more functionality. There's more things to consider and to get right, and sort of clicking on things, and it can be a bit fiddly. But it's worth having a little go and figuring it out. But hopefully you found that useful, Nigel, and that sorted that one out. And for those watching this video.
Thank you very much, Marie-Louise. That's been very useful and helpful and insightful as well.
Thank you. Well, you're very welcome. So I'll stop sharing. So thank you for those watching, whether you watched live on Facebook or watched the replay, or when I eventually put this on YouTube. Hello to YouTube. And have a good rest of the day. And